Hi guys, this is Donna with Love Rocks, and we've got a new video this week. It is of an angry chicken. This one was a lot of fun to do, turned out real cute. Remember that if you want to be in the drawing for this rock, you need to go to this page, subscribe, and comment under this video, and then you'll be entered for free into the drawing for this rock. So I found a couple, well, actually I found a lot of angry chickens everywhere, and I wanted to do one. This particular one, I found 2 or 3 that I liked on Pinterest, and so I pulled it off. I'd love to give the artist credit for it, but I think in Pinterest a lot of things get repinned, and it's really hard to kind of go down a rabbit hole trying to figure out who originally did this. So I don't have an original artist. If somebody happens to know who that is, let me know and we'll give that person credit. But I found this picture. It was painted on some old barn wood. So I thought it would be a fun one to try. So credit is, it was found on Pinterest. I don't have the artist's name. Okay, so let's get started. I started with a fairly light colored rock because we're going to have a lot of red on this one and black. We do have some white, so I wanted to be able to find a rock in the right color that would really pull out those colors when I did it. This rock happens to have a little bit of sandstone in it. It's kind of got that porous texture to it. So there is quite a bit of paint used on this. I did not pre-seal it. I didn't really have too much trouble with it. So, when you're picking out your rocks, you just got to kind of get to know which ones you're going to have to pre-seal and which ones you're not. This one felt like it would take the paint pretty well without absorbing too much of it. So it worked out okay. So once I picked out the rock and got the sketch put on there, I started off. Some of the colors I do show throughout the video. Some of them I forgot to show the colors. So I will add a list of all the colors that I used in the description. So I started off with the beak. It seems to be the best place to start, in the middle, and then we'll start adding everything to it. The eyes are very, very prominent in these pictures, and so I wanted to set that beak and get those eyes in there and get them situated just perfect, because really the rest of the bird can be moved or switched or added to wherever it needs to be done, but those eyes and that beak really need to be perfect. So that was why I started with it. I went in with my orange, and I didn't really like the color of it, so you'll see that I lighten it up with quite a bit of white and get that beak in there the color that I wanted. Now we're going to go in, and I kind of put a few feathers around the eye because I wanted to make sure that it was going to be situated where I could get enough feathers coming out away from that eye. And I just spent a little time looking at it, making sure that those eyes were where I wanted them and the shape that I wanted them. I threw in a few more feathers between that and the area that comes down, that big long hanging area. Again, just making sure that it's going to be situated in the right place. It felt right, but for me, I wanted to make sure I didn't get them too big and that I was able to fit enough of the bird onto the rock that it was going to look right in the end. So placing those few black feathers for me was more of finding out that I had it spaced in the right area before I went in there and did all of the extensive painting that's going to be done and those heavy colors. If you find that you're not in the right place, You can kind of move things over when you've only got a few lines in there. But once you start putting in the heavy red, the heavy black, and you start filling in areas, it's kind of hard to go back. So that was my biggest reason for putting those in slowly, just to make sure everything was going to fit where I wanted it to fit. So I put in a base color of engine red on that area down below the neck where those are going to be hanging. And I went in pretty heavy. I'll go back and highlight, but then I took a chance and actually used the black to do my shading on this. This is more of a cartoon type bird, so you know it doesn't have to be real colors that you're going to see on him. And I wanted to really show a lot of darks and lights so that it appeared that that area had some depth, some roundness, and just stood out to you when you looked at it. This painting is a bit intimidating when you first look at it. When I started to do it, I really thought to myself, boy, is this something I want to put out there, because I don't want people to look at it and think that it's going to be difficult so they don't try it. But please know that it's really not as difficult as it looks. If you'll take each area slowly, you go in and you put down your base color, and then go back and then do your highlights and do your shading, you've got it. It's truly that simple. You have 4 basic areas. You have the beak, you have that large area that comes down underneath the beak, you have the piece that goes up over the head, and you have the eyes. So if you break it down and you take each of those pieces, you put in your base color, and then you slowly put in your darks and your lights, you will finish this and stand back and look at it, realizing it wasn't as hard as you thought, but it is a really cool rock to do. Of course, the feathers are the easiest part. I started with the black, and then we'll put in the red we'll put in the white, over the top of that. And we'll just keep putting that in. Black and white until we get it the way we want it. And I go back and I highlight that beak because I knew it was going to need a little more highlighting. And there's really nothing wrong with making sure that, you know, you can go back to that 3, 4, 5 times throughout the painting. Stand back, look at it. I've even left things sitting on my desk to dry overnight and come back the next morning and made more changes to something before it gets sealed. Just because I want to make sure that everything that I can see is appealing to my eye. Doesn't mean it's right, just means it appeals to my eye. I really hope you guys try this one. Again, it's got some basic colors. You're not using a lot of different colored paints, and it's easy to sketch. Super simple sketching requirements for this. If you pause this video, you should be able to sketch in what you need. And then, like I said, the areas that you're going to paint are going to be pretty simple if you don't try to take in the whole painting and get overwhelmed by it. Divide it up into the pieces and just tackle one piece at a time. And again, think about where that light's coming from. It's coming from, if you're looking at this, it's coming from the left-hand side up over it, and that's why you're getting that highlight on that nose. I would say right above its head is where the light's coming. And just keep that in mind as you're doing your highlights and your shading. Now we're going to go in and start one of those eyes. And this is what I mean. You're just taking each piece. You're going to paint that eye black. And then you're going to go back in. And this is going to be kind of the shiny spot, but it's going to allow us to make it look round and make it pull away from the picture, so you don't have this flat object sitting on your rock. I'm going back in there and pull a little bit of that orange. Now we're going to do the other eye. Add a few more feathers. That's just so I can reassure myself I have plenty of room there to fill out that face. Now we're going to go to the other side, and you'll notice I didn't quite get that eye as round as I wanted to, so I added a little right there. And that's perfectly fine. That's the whole idea of going slow and taking each piece as you go, because then you can look at it as a whole picture and know if things are going to fit right, if things are going to match, if they're going to, the proportions are going to be correct on your paintings. This painting took me about an hour to do total. So it's not a super quick hiding rock, but it's definitely not one of the hardest ones I've done. And as you see, when you get to the end, oh man, it just turns out so cute. And so much fun to do. And you know, these angry chickens right now, because they're so popular, there are a million different ways that you can do them. Different colors, coming from different sides of the rock. I've seen them poking around doors and under things and looking through things. You could paint a barn door that he's looking around. You could paint a pail that he's looking like through the area that's between the pail and the handle. Like the sky's the limit on this. You could do so many different things. And they just capture so much personality. I love the eyes. Actually, I just really like this chicken. And once you get that second eye in, I couldn't help myself. I had to play with the feathers a little bit. Make sure everything's still fitting in there the way it should. Now we're going to do that cone on top. And it's pretty much the same as everything else. Now you're looking at another section. So, you know, look at this as just by itself, just this cone. You're going to outline it. Make sure you have all the pieces where you want them to be. And then you're going to fill them in with that base color. Now, when I did the highlighting, both on the cone and under his chin. What I did was for the highlight, I mixed a little bit of white with that engine red. Keeping it in the red tones, but getting it light enough that you have, you can see that the light is hitting it. For the dark, I did not want to overwhelm my picture with too much black. And so I tried something a little bit different. Instead of mixing the black with the red and getting a darker red, I really wanted to see a little bit of black, a thin black. So what I did was I took a tiny bit of the black and got it really, really wet. I like doing that process because you put it on, it's very wet, and then you dry your brush real quick, and then you take your brush and you set it any place that it's too thick. And as you set it there, the brush will wick that water back up into the brush. And so you can really control not only how much darkening is going in those areas, but you can also control how light and how dark it is. So not just the heaviness of the black, but the amount of it. When you mix the black with the red, and then you lay that in as your dark, it's a heavy paint. It is a paint. And so if you get it too dark, you have to wait for it to dry, and then you have to paint over it. And a lot of times it'll start getting very thick in those areas. Doing it this way with, it's almost like a watercolor method. If you've ever done watercolors, doing it this way, it's very thin, it's very light, it's easy to take away from. So if you get a little too much, you can get it out of there. If you don't get enough, it's not a big deal to put a little more in there. I don't know, it's just another technique that you can try and see which one you like the best. I kind of go back and forth. If it's something such as the mushroom house that I did, with that, I need those darks to be heavy. I need those lights to be heavy. It's a house set in the darkness, in the moonlight, and I needed them to be heavy, and I needed them to be a thick paint color. So that's something that I would not use this technique for. But with this one, it seemed to really work well. So try both and see which one you like better. So for the highlight, I did just use 2 colors of paint. Whereas with the shadow, I did like a watercolor technique and really thinned out the color with white. And you can see as I'm putting that on how wet it is. Now, you do take a chance when you do that the water will run like this did over the edge. Thank goodness I rinsed my brush and grabbed that ran off the edge there, and after everything dried, it did not leave any color that I didn't want outside of those areas. I know it's hard to tell from right there, but it cleaned up good. But that's really the only thing you have to be careful with. Now, if you have a base color and you use that technique, most of the time, unless you're on the edge of a rock, which you'll see I am right on the edge with that cone. If you're not on the edge of the rock and it's a flatter surface, the color that you put on with the black and the real watered down black, it'll stay within the areas that have the paint. It'll stay in that area pretty good. I should have known that area right there had a nice heavy curve on the rock that it would run, but I did grab it before it caused any problems. Now I'm putting those A little more feathers in there. And basically what I'm doing is I'm going at it pretty conservatively, because what I don't want is a huge amount of feathers on that head. Although if you want it to look more like a silky or one of your more exotic chickens, you could do that. But I didn't want too many feathers up there. And when you're painting on a bare rock like this, especially when you get to parts like this, there's not a lot of forgiveness. So once you lay something like that in there by itself, reaching out across that bare rock, it's really hard to take off if you put too much. So I would rather be conservative, do a little, work my way down, see how the shape looks, go back up, work my way down, look at the shape, doing a little bit at a time and adding those a little at a time. For me, I'm just a little more comfortable with that so that I don't overdo it. And as you're adding those layers, the other thing is you get a heaviness in your paint on a rock that has a lot of crevices in it and is real porous. When you layer those feathers on there, black, white, just going back and forth, you eventually get enough paint on there that you can start putting in some very thin, wispy lines for your feathers. Right at first, it's kind of hard because the rock is absorbing that paint. But by the time you get to this point, yeah, it's easy. And just keep going back and forth, making sure that you get the right amount of feathers on him. Just wanted to make that neck a little thicker right there. I didn't want him to have too skinny of a neck. Now we're going to go back and throw in a little bit more black. Oh man, you know, I've never been like a crazy chicken person. I think chickens are cute. I own chickens. But the last few chickens that I have painted, I have just had so much fun doing. I just love them. It's kind of like my gnomes. I don't want to be known for chickens. I don't want to be known for gnomes. There you go, guys. There it is. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe and comment so you can be put in the drawing. And I hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you in another week or so. Have a great day. Bye now.